Hello everyone, I'm Thomas, and today I'm going to be going over my top 16 set from the Oceania Championship finals. So don't really have too much kind of prepared. I've kind of looked over the VOD already once, so I just kind of noted down some of like what was in my hand just because it's not kind of always clear with these kind of hand angles. But otherwise, I'll kind of just be rambling and giving some insights, I guess, into what I was thinking at the moment, as well as what might be a bit more obvious kind of in hindsight. So you can see here my starting hand is pretty good. I have the Law Searcher, I have Zorojuro, I have the Sungro, I have a 2K, and I have the 5 cost kid. So I have two chances to search for the Luffy Taro, as well as two draws and two like opportunities to get it off life. So very high chance that I can hit like my perfect curve this game. So yep, I just keep it, and turn one I just play out the searcher. My only option here is just to take the Sanguro, which is fine. And I grab that. I actually forget to put it in my hand, and you can see very shortly my opponent's like, put it into your hand, so we have a little chuckle about it. But yep, so he plays down the Sabo. I leader ability, and I think I get a 9 cost Luffy, if I'm not mistaken. No, I get a Zorojuro here. Okay. So I just swing 5. In this matchup, I kind of just want to push him down to 0 like pretty early on, just so he's kind of forced to awaken early and start kind of bleeding cards, I guess. So this search here, I actually think about for a bit. I think it's a bit of an awkward search because obviously I haven't found the Luffy Taro that I want. And right here, I'm just considering whether I want to just take the 2K or take the 7 cost Sanji. I do think like the 7 cost Sanji probably is a bit better, considering I already have the have a 2K in hand. And this still allows me to kind of somewhat comfortably curve out next turn. So I forget what he does, but I think he plays on a Kuzan here. That's totally fine with me. Oh, you can see here, I just want to counter out here. Even though like the Bonclay can be useful, I think in this matchup there's just like better cards to kind of keep. Like I may need the kid for a blocker later on. And the Bonclay just kind of dies to the Rocket Luffy's, which he'll inevitably start to loop anyway. So yeah, I finally get the 9 cost Luffy off life here. And I think for that turn I draw the 2K Sanji. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just gonna pause the video here for a sec while I kind of talk about my options for this turn, I guess. So I think the obvious option and the one that I end up taking is just to play the 7 cost Sanji that I grabbed from the searcher earlier on curve. With that play, I have two options. I can either rest the Kuzan or I can rest the Baby Sabo. And I think both options are fine here. It kind of just depends, like, what I kind of value more, whether it be like pushing him down to 0 or kind of stepping back a little bit, knowing that, hey, I haven't really hit, my optimal or perfect curve here. So if I do rest the Kuzan, I should not swing into his life, at least not to 1 life. I should leave him probably at 2. Because he has the Baby Sabo down, I don't want to just let him like become a 9 cost leader and 1 life. So he could do that by playing out the Hiyori, putting the Sabo into his life. And then from there, obviously, activate the Baby Sabo. Then he'll be at 0 life. He can leader ability and play out another baby and, obviously attach 2 Don to his leader. So yeah, he'll then be a 9 cost, 9 K leader with 1 life, which is kind of what I want to avoid here. I'd much prefer him be a 7k leader, or with 1 life, or a 9 cost leader with 0 life. The other options that I can consider here is to play the blocker kid and just swing. So I think this option like is also kind of fine. Actually, no, it's not, because it's still, yeah, it still allows like him to potentially just become a 9k 1 life, which is what I'm really trying to avoid here. I did think about it because I did get the 9 cost Luffy off life, so because like next turn, if I'm not like, you know, minusing my Don, I can really comfortably play that 9 cost Luffy. So then having the extra Don from the kid ability to either, you know, float a Don or swing like a bit heavier is obviously quite nice. But I think here, like, especially with just the baby Sabo on the field, I just don't really want to play into that, 9k 1 life loop. So I think, the only play I can really do here is play the Sanji. And I think I end up resting his baby Sabo, which I think is fine here, because what ends up happening is I'll push him to 1 life, and once I rest the baby Sabo, I can then swing my Searcher into it. And then by swinging my Searcher into it, he's either forced to give me 1 card if he wants to defend it. And then I also have the option then to just swing into it with my Sanji if I want to just clear it. Or I can just swing him into face, and now he has to choose, like, hey, do I want to give up an extra 2 cards so that I can become 9k 1 life? Or do I want to just take it, but then I won't be able to become 9k 1 life? So essentially, I think what happens is I just rest the baby Sabo and he lets it go, which is totally fine with me. And I just push him down to 0 life. So next turn, he's forced to awaken, and he can only, he has to choose between being 7k 1 life or 9k 0 life, both of which I'm okay with. And swing with the Zorojiro first in case there's a trigger. We can see what happens this turn very shortly, but I do think, him having the Rocket Luffy as the last trigger or life there really does kind of break my tempo here. It is quite bad, I would say, because next turn, not only does he have the Rocket Luffy to combo with his Kuzan that he's got on the field, to clear my 7 cost Sanji and essentially leave me with 0 board, it also, it clears out the Zorojiro this turn as well. And essentially, I'm left with 0 board after this turn, as we'll shortly see, which is obviously not very ideal, because I think if I push him to 0 here and I have the 2 characters on board, going into next turn, he actually has to play 2 like adults from hand, as opposed to the 1 that he gets from the trash here. So yeah, pretty unfortunate. Like, I not only lose my character, but also he saves a character essentially, or card from hand. But you know, that's kind of how the game goes, and that's why I kind of have to adapt from here. We can see, yep, he takes it, triggers it. I'm very sad, and I pass over to him. So I think he swings 7 with the Kuzan here, right? And I'm pretty sure if he does that, he swings 7 with the Kuzan, and I'm forced to block out of that. Reason being, he'll then have a 9k swing, or potentially even 11k if he chooses to go to a 9k leader. And if I take both of those hits, I will be on 1 life with no board, and that will be very dangerous. He'll have like a lot of pressure. I'll be forced to kind of give up a lot of cards in hand. So that's why I have to counter out of this first hit, which is fine. You can see though, like, my hand is actually kind of getting a bit bricky now. So I give him the Sangoro and the Sanji, and then I'll take the second hit, and if my memory serves me correct, it is a brick. So let's see. Yep, he swings leader. We take this one. It's definitely not worth countering out of. And yeah, so we finally get the Luffy Taro, and then we draw the other Luffy Taro. So now if I pause my VOD here, so in my hand I have an Uso Hachi, I have a Sengoro, which I searched for, I have the Blocker Kid from my starting hand, I have a Zorojuro, 9-cost Luffy, Luffy Taro, Luffy Taro. So essentially in my hand of, I think, 7 cards, I have 2k, 1k, 1k. I'm in a pretty kind of awkward position here, to be honest, because like he's got a body stuck on board. He's 7k. He's kind of comfortably into his loop now. So I feel like my options for this turn are I can either, because I'll be on 8 Don, right? Or sorry, I am currently on 8 Don, so I have the option to go to 9 Don if I want. So the first option is obviously I could leader ability, play the 9-cost Luffy, and kind of just build a big board, I guess. But this feels kind of awkward going to 1 life when I don't really have that much counter in hand. Obviously I can draw one from the Luffy, but it could be another brick. Or like if it's a Gum Gum, like it's essentially a brick. So he can very comfortably push me to 0 life next turn, and like I'm suddenly on like a really big timer to kind of finish him off, which I don't really feel comfortable with like doing in this position because I still have options. The next option I think could be Luffy Taro Sengoro and probably just swing 6k into the Kuzan. So I feel like this is probably my best or second best option here, because if they let the Kuzan die, then they don't have a way to kill my pieces with like Rocket Luffy, because I have obviously a 5-cost and a 7-cost. And if they leave Kuzan up, at least I burn a 2k counter from them. And then I also force them to use the Kuzan effect and the Rocket Luffy, and it forces them to choose between whether they want to KO my Luffy Taro or my Sangoro. And I'm kind of okay with like having either up, because obviously with the Sangoro, I can generate more cards into my hand. And obviously with the Luffy Taro, it is a big body that's kind of tricky to remove. And if he does kind of swing with the Kuzan, like that's really easy for me to take care of next turn. The other option is like very similar, except instead of the Sangoro, I can play out the Zorojuro in my hand. So I think this is also like a pretty good option. Like I don't really know which one's better out of the two, but this allows me to remove 2 bricks from my hand and search for, like a Gum Gum or more counter. But it does mean that they're not necessarily forced to use the Kuzan effect to kill my Zorojuro if they play out that Rocket Luffy again. So, and it also just like makes it an easy decision for them to attack or like pop my Luffy Taro. Like it's not like kind of forcing them into a tricky spot where, hey, do I want to give them card draw or a bigger body? It's like, yeah, let's just leave the Zorojuro up. And the other option, or like I guess like kind of like just like an extra kind of option on top of like the 2 that I just mentioned, is just like instead of swinging the 6k, I can like float it on. And this is like something that like you can do, especially when your hand is a bit more bricky. Is just like start conditioning the opponent to think that like I have the Gum Gum, when my hand may actually just be full of bricks. Because if I leave up the 1 Don like multiple turns, they're probably like, oh yeah, like he's got it. So that can kind of like maybe dissuade them a little bit from going for game. But it can also backfire. Like they might just start swinging like 8Ks at you, and you don't have that many 2Ks in your hand, so it can backfire. But here I think the best play is just Luffy Taro Sengoro. It's not ideal having like a lot of bricks in my hand, but I think with 2 life I still have breathing room, and there's also a chance that he just lets the Kuzan die here, though. If I was him, I'd probably keep it up as well. Because yeah, you're probably expecting like either Luffy Taro type combos or some sort of big body to come. I guess the one benefit of the Luffy, like the 9-cost Luffy, is it is still out of range if he does Kuzan it. But to be honest, if I am playing the 9-cost Luffy, I am probably killing this Kuzan. So yeah, not much kind of issues there, I guess. So yeah, we see he does counter out, and he in fact did have the Hiyori, so definitely made me feel even better about kind of resting that Sabo and pushing him to 0 on that kind of earlier turn. And you can see I just play out the Luffy Taro and Sanguro. So now he's on 8 Don. We'll have to see what he does because I don't really remember. 6 Don active. I think he might swing 7 again if my memory serves me correctly, but let's see. Like with the Kuzan. Considering playing the Searcher, I think he actually just untaps it. Yeah, I remember like being like, oh, I didn't know that was allowed, but apparently you can do that. So yeah, he plays out the baby. Just activates the Sabo, draws 2. I think he just loops to being 9k 1 life here, which is like kind of what I was trying to avoid all along, but when your board kind of just gets KO'd like that, sometimes it's just unavoidable. But like the good thing about pushing him like there is like it kind of forced him to have these like babies in hand, and obviously he did, which was yeah a bit unfortunate, but it did force him to like have these exact babies, which is also like sometimes good to kind of check them on. So yeah, he discards the Kuzan here. Not too useful from once like he's kind of 4 Don turns past. Yeah, he swings the 7. I'm pretty much forced to counter out of this first one, because I know that I can't really take the second one, being a either 9k or 11k, and yeah, oh. Alright, sorry about that. My player just crashed, but we're back. So yeah, he swings the first 7k, and I am forced to counter out, because I know an 11k is likely coming, or even a 9k, which I can't counter out of. Yep, so he ends up popping the Luffy Taro. I think that's probably a bit better, but I personally don't mind because my hand is so bricked up that I actually really want this card draw. And I think I grab a 2k Sanji off life here, and then I draw into another Luffy Taro, which is definitely not what I want to see. When I already have another Luffy Taro in hand. And yeah, at this point I really just want counter, and like gums. So here it's pretty safe to just kind of Sangro the Kuzan first, draw a card and see kind of what I get to give myself more options. So I end up getting the 9 cost Lin off this Sangro, which is like really, really clutch. Because I think that's just like straight up my best play. So I guess we can quickly talk about the options that I have for this turn again. So as always, I can play the 9 cost Luffy, but with 3 bodies potentially able to like just kind of attack me, I don't really feel comfortable staying like 1 life with like so many bricks in my hand. So the Luffy would probably like kill the Kuzan here. He'd probably let it go, but I'd still probably be pushed to 0 life next turn. And if like I don't really see a world where he just like splits the Don, but like technically if he's just split the Don between like the Sabo and his leader, like he would just end the game and I would lose. So I definitely don't want to just like play into that. So yeah, the 9 cost Lin I think is the best play because not only does it push like clear his board essentially, heals me, and it also yeah keeps forcing him to have these like babies in hand, right? Or a Moria obviously, which we know he doesn't draw for quite a while. The other option, like especially if maybe I'll just pause here. The other option I think that turn I had was if I didn't find the Lin off that Sangro, is probably just go with Luffy Taro and Zorojuro. As I mentioned earlier, it removes the 2 bricks from my hand. It also allows me to float a Don for either like gums that I find off the Zorojuro, or maybe, you know, the last card in my life is a gum. So, and it at least, you know, allows me to search for like counter with the Zorojuro. Like I can just grab like a 2k potentially. This play kind of does assume like Kuzan dies to like a 6k and a 5k swing. Um, because otherwise, yeah, he does have the two bodies and I'll be on one life. But I feel like, yeah, at this point, he doesn't really want to commit too much more to like saving that Kuzan. Um, yeah, because like, regardless like of whether I play like yeah, I think like at this point, if I don't play this Lin, he's kind of like committed to just going face, right? Because he's slowly bleeding resources here, and I just kind of want to like either stabilize or kind of rush him down so, that like I can race him. And I think this Lin allows me to very safely kind of say, hey, I'm going to like slow down the pace of the game and just play kind of forcing you to keep burning resources until you eventually run out, essentially. And the only way, the only kind of answer he has to that is to start finding those Morias, and we can see he just bottomed one, but because like eventually he's just gonna run out of babies in hands and he's gonna stop cycling on me, right? We do see, yeah, he finds the Sabo off the searches. I kind of chuckle a bit because I don't know if he had any more in hand, but I was like, damn, that's like the only way he can kind of increase his leader's power this turn if he doesn't have Moria. And that play also does just kind of indicate to me that, hey, he probably doesn't have Moria in hand because he hit 10 on that turn. I think if you have Moria, it's like I don't know, I'm not a BY like expert, but I think if you have the Moria, you probably just play it there. Um I think we also like this is maybe like hindsight, like looking back on the match, but like I think at this point, like you probably consider just swinging into this Sangro, and just getting rid of it. He does end up going for life, but you can see like throughout the course of this game, I'm gonna get so much value out of this Sangro, and like I understand that he probably wants to pressure me and like try and end the game soon, because yeah, like he obviously doesn't have the Moria, so he doesn't have that luxury of playing this kind of long grindy game. So you can see I get a Gum Gum from life, and I draw a Zorojiro. He is, what is that? 2k or 9k leader? Actually can't see. I think wait, so he Rygoed. I think he's a 7k leader this turn. But we'll find out shortly anyway. So my current hand is two Zorojuros, 9 cost Luffy, Luffy Taro, 2k Sanji, Gum Gum Giant, and then with the Sanguro draw, I draw a Bon Clay. Oh yeah, so here's a 7k because I swing 7k into him, and yeah, he's forced to give me a card. I think 9 cost Luffy feels decent this turn, because he's kind of, yeah, he didn't really build any board last turn, and I can now effectively float a Don if I want to play it. But playing 9 cost Luffy does mean that I can't kind of get a card out of his hand if I want to like swing with Sungro. Like, it just means I swing a 6 into a 7 and float a Don. And I feel like at this point where I know he doesn't have the Moria, or like my feeling is he doesn't have a Moria, I really want to just keep forcing him to give me more cards because I know that he's kind of on a timer himself now. I think, yeah, and this is probably what I end up doing, but I think Luffy Taro plus Zorojuro is my best play here because I know I have now the Gum Gum in hand, so it's like very safe for me to leave that Don up because, I'm not bluffing anymore. I'm not like trying to draw it off life or whatever. And this also allows me to swing 7k with the Sungro and also plays 2 bodies while getting rid of 2 bricks in my hand, and obviously allows me to search for, a card to kind of help fix up my hand. I'm probably looking for 2Ks, Gum Gums, maybe an Onami to like just, keep help cycling kind of the bricks from my hand and just, fix it up. And it's worth noting that if I did know that I was going down this path, I probably could have swung 8k with Sungro because I, commit 2 Don to the Sungro, I play the Luffy Taro, and then I have a floating Don up. But I also wanted to keep the option to play the 9 cost Luffy or the Lin Lin. Because, like, let's say I swing 8k with, like, the Sangro. I immediately remove the option for me to play the Luffy or the Lin Lin. And, you know, I think being flexible in this is, like, always good. Like, he may decide to just, like, take a life here. And if that is the case, like if he lets the ping Luffy get bottom decked, then I probably would just want to play the rush Luffy, right? And just kind of swing 10 into his 7 and just force him to either give me 2 cards or remove the Sabo from the field. But yeah, like essentially I just kind of want to keep like my options open at that point. So I think I make the right play here with just Luffy Taro and Zorojiro. And I forgot what I grabbed, but I think it's probably just 2k because I remember getting the Gums a lot later in this game. So let's see. Yep, -1. So yeah, we see Sangoro, Usohachi, 2k, Bonclay, and Robin. So I think here I definitely just take like a 2k. Usohachi is good because it also has the added effect of resting like their Sabo, or you can see in the trash the Shirahoshi blocker, which can help me go for lethal later. So I think this turn he swings kind of early at me with his leader, which is like pretty smart from his end because he's kind of like testing like, hey, if you don't kind of counter out of this early swing, he can like pivot into like a really big swing with the Sabo and just like kind of test my hand because I think he's kind of on the back foot now. Like assuming he didn't draw into the Moria this turn, like he's essentially running out of resources, right? And this is kind of the benefit of like pushing these BYs to kind of low health early and forcing them to awaken on like their 6 Don turn. Is by the time they're on 10 Don, they're running out of resources and they're running out of steam and they really need to see their Morias. So you kind of put them on a timer to hit those essentially. And he swings 9 at my lead and he's floating. How much Don is that? Is that 6 Don? I think it might be 6 Don, yeah. So then 6 Don plus, what is that? 6 Don from the Sabo, that'd be a 12k swing. So I think I technically have enough counter to counter out of the 12k swing, but like I think it's just better to give him the Gum early. Like if he really wants to swing that Sabo, like go for it. Like with the 12k, I mean, because you know, then it means he's not really playing anything else on the board. So I ended up pitching the 9-cost Luffy because I think at this point I don't really need it. I kind of am thinking like my role here is just to like if I'm gonna go for game next turn, I'm swinging with my board. I'm not playing the 9-cost Luffy. Like I already have a board. I don't need to like, waste a turn just like committing all my Don to like just playing one body when I can kind of more comfortably attach Don and swing. You can see that I actually draw a 9-cost Luffy and a Lore Searcher off the Gum, and I think this might be the turn where he just Raygos he just Raygos the Luffy Taro. Which is fine, and he'll then add 2 cards to hand. You can see like here he's slowly running out of cards in his hand. I don't remember exactly how many, but I think he's down to like maybe 4 or something. I actually get quite lucky and I top deck a Lin, I think. So yeah, I'm on 9 Don because of the Gum. And yeah, I do draw the Lin there. So here I think Lin once again is like pretty good because obviously he has the ping Luffy on board now. So next turn he can kind of have 2 big swingers and I'll be on 1 life. So getting that Lin was actually quite clutch. I think if I don't draw that Lin, I may be forced to kind of try and go for game here, to be honest. Like, rest something and then keep swinging at his life, because he's only a 7k, so it's like a lot more doable. But obviously the two life kind of makes that pretty tricky, and you can assume that his hand is like pretty much all 2Ks because he hasn't played Moria and he's just like, yeah, keeping his hand full of 2Ks. So the Lin's like pretty clutch here because A, it allows me to heal back to a healthy range, and it also allows me to remove that ping Luffy, right, from the board. Here I'm deciding whether I want to pitch the Luffy or the Law Searcher. I end up pinging the Law Searcher, and I think this might be wrong, in hindsight, because I think the 9-cost Luffy, like I said earlier, isn't really needed at this point in the game, as realistically, like, if I'm going for lethal, I'm swinging, like, I'm, like, attaching Don and swinging with the characters on board, right? The 1-cost Searcher, I guess, isn't, like, too valuable to me right now, as, like, my main targets are probably, like, Onamis or 2Ks. But given that I've only seen 1 Gum this game, right? And I haven't seen any in my searches. So I know that, like, there's only 3, like, there's 3 Gums. And I don't want to, like, potentially, like, bottom, like, 2 of them at once. You know what I mean? So given how much of my deck I've seen, while I've only seen 1 Gum, I guess it's kind of, yeah, not great to play that Law Searcher. And so I think it's, like, pitching either is probably fine, but I think just keeping the 1k in hand might be good. But if I do think that, like, the game is going to be grinded out even longer, the 9-cost Luffy is definitely, like, still pretty good down the line. But it's just, like, about having the free turn to, like, play it. Because, like, I know my opponent doesn't have Moria. Like, these turns, like, all look like really good Moria turns, and he's kind of been taking, like, awkward, like, paths, I guess. So I know that he doesn't currently have a Moria in hand. So I think, yeah, just pitching the 9-cost Luffy is probably fine. Just keep the counter in hand, because he's on a timer. His best play at some point, if he doesn't draw the Moria, is just to go for a Hail Mary all in and kind of, yeah, just try and counter check me, essentially. And I think pitching that 1k is just allowing him to play into that. But you can see, like, with the Lin though, I am still, like, pretty safe, because I removed that 8k body from the board, as well as add my own kind of big body, as well as heal a life, obviously. I think this is the turn where he top decks the Moria, but yeah, as we can soon see, it is a bit too late. But it does make things very, very, very awkward for me, because he puts out a lot of pressure. So right now he's, like, mathing out this turn. I think what he's trying to figure out is, like, can he swing with this Sabo, which we shortly see that he does. And what's actually kind of funny is, as soon as he swings with that Sabo, I just assume that I don't have lethal on him. I don't actually run the math, but, you know, thinking back, I really should have at least checked that, you know, he didn't miscalculate, instead of just kind of trusting, like, you know, like, hey, why would he swing with the Sabo if, you know, I can kill him, right? But yeah, so, like, this is, like, an instant snap, like, Moria. There's not much point about thinking about that, but he's more just thinking about whether he can swing with the Sabo, I think. Because he knows he has, like, 3 cards in hand, so if he maps out the turns, right, he needs to essentially finish me off next turn, is essentially what's happening here, because unless he top decks, like, another Moria, like, he's just running out of juice. You can see he has, I think, 2 cards in hand, maybe 3. So yeah, brings out 2 of these, and he's just setting up for lethal. He knows he mathematically cannot lose, because he's at 9 life, and the best I can do is what, 999, like, yeah, essentially 4 9s. And because he can block out of 3 of those with counter, and then he has the extra life, yeah, I can't actually kill him. So that's why instead of attaching like the 2 Don to his leader, he actually attaches it to the Sabo and swings, so he can go 8 and then 9 here. And if I remember correctly, I don't actually... I like technically have enough counter to block out of this 8k swing, but it's like something awkward like 2 like 1 2k and 2 1ks, I think. And I don't want to show him like that weakness, so that's kind of why I take it here. And then obviously I take the 9k hit. And now here I'm just like trying to figure out kind of how I can survive, right? Because I'm pretty confident here, if I can just survive, I win the game. Because he's like barely got any resources left. So I think what I do first is I just essentially kill his Sabo for free, and then draw a card to give myself more options. And you can see I draw the Gum Gum very luckily. So now I'm like thinking like, okay, I have like a very, very high chance of living this turn because I can play out this Onami, which I got off life, cycle out one of my bricks, and then I can just, as long as I float like 2 Don, I'll either draw into another Gum Gum with my Gum Gum, or I'll draw into like more counter, because I like at this point, right, I've actually seen nearly every single brick in my deck. I think I've seen both of my Linlins, both of my 9-cost Luffys. I've seen 3 of my Zorojuros, 3 of my Luffy Taros. So the chances that like I run into the like last Luffy Taro and the last Zorojuro is like pretty low. And obviously while Gum Gum is a brick without Don, I'll obviously have Don up. So the odds that I like draw into counter here is like pretty much just guaranteed. So this is why I know that like Onami is definitely the play here. I think at one point I was considering like playing the Sanji, but it's like a 2k from my hand, and yeah, while it can't be like KO'd by the Luffy, the Rocket Luffys, it's also like if I'm blocking a hit, like I can already block a hit with the Onami, you know what I mean? So that's kind of why I play the Onami, because I can preserve the 2k in my hand, as well as trash like one of the non-counters in my hand, which I think are the 9-cost Luffy and the Zorojuro. So I just think about it a bit just to make sure I'm making the right choice, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, Onami is correct here. And I think, yeah, he just asked how many cards I had in hand. And I think I swung with the Linlin here just to burn a card from his hand. Obviously I want to do that first, because, you know, I can threaten lethal potentially. So yeah, I pitched the 9-cost Luffy. I draw an Onami and a Gum Gum. So at this point I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely surviving this turn. And I kind of like quickly math it out, and I think I have lethal, but I actually make a mistake here in the moment, which is I forget that he's going to draw 2 extra cards with the Luffys, which is like pretty silly of me. And you'll see like at the end, I actually greatly misplay, but I'll talk about that kind of later. But yeah, you can see here, I'm like big chilling. He swings the Rocket Luffy. I just take it because I know he's going to KO it otherwise. So no point wasting counter. Yep, just take it. He'll KO the other one, but that's fine. The point of that other Onami was just to cycle like more bricks out of my hand, because I know, yeah, I'm pretty, like, you can see off that second Onami, I grabbed a 2k and a 2k, because the odds are just like in my favor at this point, because I know what I've seen in my deck. So here he swings the 7. I don't want to over counter this, so yeah, give him a 2k 1k. And he just goes, what's that? 9 plus 9? So is that 18, I think? So it goes 18. Wait, is it 9 plus 9? Yeah, 9 plus 9. So 18. And obviously I pitched the Gum Gum first. And I actually pitched the other Gum Gum because I know I have 3 in hand here. And it's actually technically my only other brick at the moment, I think. You can see with this first Gum Gum, I do draw into another Zorojuro, which is another brick, but yeah, I also draw the Usohashi, so I give him that, so that puts me at 11. And here, I am just trying to figure out whether I can kill him. Sorry, not kill him. Whether I can preserve my, like, my other Gum Gum, because I don't want to -4 Don if I can help it, because it'll give me more Don to go for lethal next turn, but I quickly realized I think he perfectly, like, forces me to use my Gum Gum with that swing. So yeah, I have to pitch the other Gum Gum. Now I'm at, so what's that, 11 plus 4, so 15. Draw 2 more, and then give him that. Yep. And I think 1 more K, right? I think that's right. Hello, this is Thomas from the future. So I actually went back after recording this, just to kind of double check, like, what exactly happened here. Because I end up like countering out with 18K on his 18K swing. And I remember what ended up happening in the moment was he attached the 9 Don to the Moria, obviously making 18K. But when he declared his attack, he said 17K. So that's why I ended up like carefully counting out to 18K. And the judge had double checked that it was indeed 18K, because that's kind of what we both thought that we needed at the time. I'm not really sure like what the rules are surrounding like when you kind of declare the wrong number. But you can see like from my hand earlier that I did indeed have enough counter anyway, even if it was even if I needed to go to that 19K number, I would have just, pitched the 2K instead of the 1K at the end. But yeah, just kind of clarifying that. So then, yeah, he draws 1 more, and then this is where I kind of screw up. And like, this is actually a really, really bad mistake. It's probably the worst mistake of the series, I think. And that includes, later on, you'll see how I miss my Linlin Hill. But essentially what happened is like, I forgot that he drew 2 extra cards. So in my head, I think I was like, oh, he's only got 3 cards in his hand, so I'll quickly swing a 7. So I like instantly swing 7 here, you can see. Yeah, so I just swing 7, and he gives me a 2 and a 1. So why is this wrong? Well, I have 8 Don available, and I have obviously 3 characters on board, and I need to hit him twice to win, right? Like I need 2 hits to go through out of my 3. So if I swing 7, what is it? So I have 8 Don, so then if I -1, so 7, so then I can split it between 2. So that becomes 7, 10, 11, right? So if I swing 7, he blocks out of the first 2 with 2 cards, right? 2K and 1K in this case. Then if he has 3 2Ks in his hand, he will block out of my 10K swing, and he will obviously win the game, right? Because obviously I just used up like all my counter, right? So if I just swung 9, 9, 10, right? He needs 3 cards to defend the first hit, and then mathematically he can never defend the 9 and the 10, right? So this is like such like a bad mistake. Like I didn't even realize this until I watched it back the second time, that yeah, I made such like a bad like fundamental error. Because if he had the 3, like if he had just drawn 2Ks with his Rocket Luffy's, like it's GG, right? And I get very, very lucky that I think he drew like a 1K and a 1K, or like 1K brick or whatever. But yeah, this nearly cost me this game, and I would be definitely kicking myself if that had happened. But at least, yeah, we got the game, and hopefully I'll learn my lesson after, yeah, reviewing this VOD. But yeah, I just like in the moment, I remember like thinking like, okay, 3 cards, I can just burn 2 with this first hit, and I have guaranteed lethal. But yeah, just completely forgot about the Rocket Luffy's. But sometimes there's just a lot going on, and you forget these things. But yeah, so we take game 1, so like really banger game, honestly. Like really back and forth. I think he definitely got unlucky, like only finding one Moria after like so many turns, and I definitely got bailed out by like pretty much top decking like Lin like twice. But at the same time, like I think I had like really really good odds to find like my perfect curve, which I didn't, and then I also like got really, well, not really, but like fairly unlucky, I think, early on, kind of just losing my board completely just because of that one Rocket Luffy in like life. So I think like, I think we both got kind of unlucky and lucky at the same time. Like, for example, like it was over until he top decked that Moria as well. So, I think like that was like just like both of us kind of were unlucky until we were like lucky right at the right moments, and both of us just like we're trying to capitalize off that momentum to kind of close out the game. I definitely, yeah, like looking back, like I think his foresight to swing like 8 with that Sabo is like pretty insane. Like I think most players kind of don't even think about that and like mapping out those future turns, and it really, yeah, definitely put me in a very awkward position the next turn if I hadn't drawn those like gums off the Onami or like top deck, right? So, but that kind of shows like, yeah, like the match can get awkward in this matchup because you kind of got to like see your pieces at the right time. And yeah, I think I still had a pretty decent start though. But yeah, just that kind of trigger really messed up my game plan. So in the second game, I have like a playable starting hand. I have two Kamazos, the Bon Clay, 7 cost Sanji, and a 2k Sanji. So I have a lot of counter, and I'll likely be able to just kind of draw out the rest. I have like my 4 Don turn play and my 7 Don turn play, and it's like obviously not the best hand, but it is definitely a playable hand, and the hands can definitely get worse. It's worth noting that my opponent did choose to go second, and so that's why I'm going first again. But what ends up happening is I see that he keeps his hand, and I'm thinking like, okay, I'm up a game, and while my hand is playable, it's still not like the best hand, right? Um, so I'm kind of thinking like, all right, I'm gonna try and yeah, fish for something better, aka fish for perfect curve, because I know he probably has like a pretty strong hand, like starting hand. So I kind of want to like give myself the best chances to win, and I know I can go a bit more risky because I'm kind of up that game, I guess. I don't know if that's the correct choice. In this situation, looking back, I think that hand was probably fine, but what ends up happening is I do mulligan. So in my mulligan hand, I find the Luffy Taro, I find another Kamazo, I get the 5 cost Kid this time, I get a Lin and a 2k Sanji. So honestly, overall, pretty similar to my starting hand or like my original hand that I kept. I threw away. The key differences being the Lin this time and the Luffy Taro over the Sanji. So yeah, don't have the searcher this time, so just pass it over to him. And yeah, he plays the Garb, which is pretty decent for him. And I believe I draw a Lin here. So my hand's actually getting like kind of bricky, just like right off the bat. And off my leader ability, I draw the 2 cost Robin. So here, my only real option really is just to play the Kamazo, I think. The Bon Clay is playable. I guess some people would probably play the Bon Clay here, and then you can either not ramp like the next turn, or you can like ramp to 8 or whatever. But it also means that if he doesn't play a body next turn, like a Kuzan, I can't actually swing into him if I want to. And, I still have the Luffy Taro here, so next turn, if I can, like, I have 2 chances to kind of draw a Zorojuro or a Sangro to play off my Luffy Taro. So I still feel like in a decent position that I can kind of push him to like 1 or 0 life pretty early on. Like, I kind of see that there's a decent chance that I'm gonna get a sizable like or a respectable board, right? It's not obviously perfect curve, but it's still like something that's like solid, right? So I play out the Kamazo. It also allows me to KO the Garb for free, if I play a minus Don effect. But I give him the 1k and I counter out here because I know that next turn I am going to be using my leader ability. So I end up drawing into another 2k Sanji, and when I leader ability, I believe I get another Bon Clay here. So this is like a pretty rough start, honestly. I don't have like the pieces that I want, and I feel like this turn here is like especially awkward, right? Because I mean, like, it's awkward, but I realistically only have two good options here, right? Or two, not even good, like, just playable options. One is just I play the Luffy Taro, like, naked or with the Robin. But it feels pretty lackluster, and I'm not really setting up, like, my next turn properly as well, especially if I play out that Robin, right? Because I know I have the 9-cost Lin Lin in hand. So, like, at the very least, I have a good 9-turn play if I want it. So like the Luffy Taro, like if I'm minus down, I have to then like use my leader ability to get that life back. Sorry, to get the Don back, and then I minus my own life. So I think the Luffy Taro, if I play it, I just play it naked and just like be like, hey, I'm just gonna put an 8k body on the board. But I end up going with the 5-cost kid play, which I think I like a lot better. The more I kind of like look at it, like I think in the moment I was kind of just like, hey, I know that I have the Lin Lin, so even if I like put him at like 1 life and he does like some weird, or like if I put him, yeah, like if like he kind of counters out of hits, like I have the Lin Lin next turn to like just keep like disrupting him kind of. So the question here now is with the 5-cost kid, do I swing with like my leader and Kamazo? I end up opting to like swing into his life here because I want to force him to like awaken early, as like, you know, that's kind of just been my like game plan going in. But I do think that there's a reasonable argument to just like chill and stop swinging into their life here and build up like a bigger board of like Lin Lin, Luffy Taro, etc. I think the main benefit of swinging here is that it just like it forces to the opponent to always have the right answers, right? Like it's like just a constant like check of like, hey, do you have the babies in your hand, right? And or like a Moria, right? But obviously with 6 Don, they're not playing the Moria anytime soon. And with the Lin Lins in my hand, like I feel confident, like if I ever want to pivot to something similar in like game 1, where I start kind of backing off a bit, building board, bouncing like awkward targets into their life, I can like do so. So you can see here that I just swing 2 6s and play the 5-cost kid. And I think, looking back, I think this is probably the best play. The 6k is like pretty much guarantee that it'll go through because he either gives me an awakener or he gives me like 2, you know, kind of cards otherwise. So yeah, I just double 6, put him at 1 life and essentially force him like, hey, you got to awaken next turn, otherwise I will be swinging all my Don at you and you're gonna have a bad time and give me heaps of cards from your hand. So we can see he bottoms a Moria here. We definitely get pretty lucky with like him not getting his Morias like across this whole set. Yeah. So this turn, yeah, he's pretty much forced to awaken. But let's see exactly what he does because I don't fully remember. Plays the farm play. Yeah, so with the 3 Don up, like he's forced to be a 7k 1 life, which is what I want. Okay, he plays the Ping Luffy and the Sabo. Okay. Oh yeah, and this next turn is where just a bunch of like kind of mechanical misplays happen, I guess. We'll see shortly, but TLDR, I KO the Flambe with Sabo Protection, and I also miss my Linlin heal. But yeah, so he passes, I take the life, I get a Law Searcher off it, and then I draw into a 5-cost Kid. So my current hand looks like Luffy Taro, Linlin, like 2 Linlins, and then 2K Sanji, Bonclay, Law Searcher, and 5-cost Kid. So I really still don't have an option for my Luffy Taro. So I guess my first option is like, hey, I can play the Law Searcher and then play the Luffy Taro. And this is probably what I would do if I didn't have like any 9-cost in my hand. But obviously there is the risk that I just don't find any targets still for my Luffy Taro. But with the Linlins in hand, I don't think it's necessary to like take that risk. Like I think it's pretty safe to just play the Linlin here. Just keep making it awkward for him to kind of keep like trying to awaken while I put out a 9k body onto board. So like if I put something onto his life and he doesn't successfully awaken, like next turn, like I have like 10 Don and 3 characters to just like, smash him down kind of thing. So yeah, I end up playing the Linlin, but I do make like an error with my ordering, where I bounce the Garp to life or whatever I choose, and I don't heal myself. I actually, looking back, made this same mistake in game 1, but they were luckily a lot more lenient with me then. I only have played with real cards for about a week before this tournament, so that's probably why I'm not, fully kind of aware of like all these like kind of minute orderings, because the sim kind of just takes care of it for you. But yeah, I play the Linlin out. I bounce the Garb to life, and then I use my Kamazo effect to KO the Flampe, which is actually under Sabo protection, but because of like this whole kerfuffle with like me missing my Linlin heal, yeah, you can see me being like, hey, can I heal my thing? And the judge is like, no, you can't, you've missed it, which is fair. But yeah, because we're all distracted by this Linlin thing, I think none of us noticed that, hey, I actually KO'd that unKO'able Flampe. But yeah, I grabbed the Sangro off the Law Search, so I kind of set up my next turn play here. I think there is a consideration here where I can actually swing, like, oh, maybe I'll keep playing because he's going to take a while with his turn, but because he was a 7k leader, I could have, like, attached the Don to, like, swing with the Kid, right, for 7 and, like, burn a card from his hand. But I just don't think it's worth it at this point. Because, like, obviously I missed the heal with my Linlin, but, like, that's not the main reason. It's more, I just want to make sure I have a good play lined up for next turn, and I think the Law Searcher kind of helps do that, because even if I, like, whiff, I'm bringing, like, the rest of the Sangros and the Zorojuros closer to, like, the top. So I think, yeah, using that floating Don to, like, play out the Law Searcher and setting up the next turn just overall feels a lot better to me, because I just want to keep the pressure on here, right? But you can see, I think he does have the Rhaego, unfortunately, to answer my Linlin. But yeah, because I have the Sangro, like, that I drew, I have a pretty, like, good play next turn. So yeah, he uses that, and it also helps him burn off the Garb, which is pretty nice side effect. This might be the turn where he actually doesn't awaken. Yeah, because he has to burn the 6 Don. And that's the power of forcing them to awaken early, right? It kind of puts them in really tricky positions where, yeah, they can't do the things that they want to do. So I give him the 2k Sanji and the Kid block here. And now he's at 5k. So here's where the fun really starts for me, right? So obviously I have the option to play my other Linlin in hand, but I really don't feel forced to play it here. Like, even though I missed my heal, like, I'm in, like, a really comfortable position, especially given how weak my opponent's last turn was, because they didn't really develop any board, and now they're just sitting here at 5k, right? So this allows me to, like, punish, like, by playing the Luffy, Taro, and Sangro and, like, just swinging, it allows me to punish him staying at 5k and just burn, like, a ton of cards from his hand. And yeah, as as you'll like shortly see, I choose to like swing like those obnoxious like 6Ks at him, because obviously I'm at 10 dons, so I have three dons spare. And yeah, it's just like awkward for him to counter out of, because he either gives me Awakeners, which are pretty valuable, especially if he doesn't have the Moria, or he gives me like 2 cards, or just bottoms his Luffy Taro. So I'm actually like pretty aware that with the Luffy Taro effect, I can like obviously get a Don back with the kid like after I minus. But you'll see shortly that like I just choose to swing the 6K with the kid instead of making it a 7 or 8K. And I think there's 2 reasons for this. Is by swinging with the 6K first, it means I don't reveal like my play for the turn. So he doesn't know that Luffy Taro is necessarily coming here. And it also actually just encourages him to like burn a card. Because if I swing the 7 or 8K, he might just be inclined to like take it and like just bottom this Luffy instead. And honestly, I would just prefer to like burn a 2K from his hand. And it also means that if he does take this Luffy to the bottom of his deck, it means I think that's 8 Don up, so I can then go ahead and swing. Like I pressure at least the swing of 10K with my little baby Searcher if he does take it, and then he's gonna have to give me 6K worth of counter. So yeah, he's essentially forced to like counter out with a 2K by me swinging this 6K first. And like while it does look awkward that I have 2 Don left up, even though I don't even like have Gum-Gums in hand, I think overall this sequence just puts him in like a lot more of an awkward position. And yeah, I just think valuing like having that flexibility to potentially pivot to that law blocker swing, law searcher swing is like way more important. So here I think if he had the Moria, he like probably just plays it, to be honest. At least in my head, I don't really know if like all BY players would do it, but the fact that he didn't kind of was like in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, he doesn't have Moria, which is like really good for me, right? So you can see he's like 7K and 2 life now, and now he's going to be 9K 1 life. So I kind of foresaw this a little bit, where I'm like, okay, there's like a decent chance he's going to become a 9K 1 life this turn, but I felt comfortable like doing this, and this is like why I didn't swing the 7 or the 8K and like force him to be at 0 life if he doesn't want to give up too many cards, is because I have the Lin in hand, right? Like Lin is just so good at like slowing down the kind of pressure that they get when they're at the 9K like 1 life. It essentially means that like not only do I get to remove the ping Luffy from the board and like just reduce like the offensive pressure, but it also means like he needs to invest more to become like 7 or 9K, right? So yeah, I think here I get the Kamazo off the life, I draw an Uso Hachi, and I'm about to use like my Sangro effect. I think I just use my Sangro just for the draw, just to give myself more options. I'm like relatively certain I'm going to play the Lin now, but it doesn't hurt to just get that extra draw anyway. And at this point, like he's kind of committing to just swinging out my life and like kind of racing me down. So I just swing 6 and I draw the 9-cost Luffy. And I see the 9-cost Luffy, but instantly like I was thinking like it doesn't make sense to play it, right? Because either way he's going to ignore it, and like I think the Lin just makes way more sense here, right? Than the 9-cost Luffy. So even though 9-cost Luffy is like pretty good in this matchup, it's like obviously a big body. It's like, at least like what I found is like it's just sometimes just like kind of awkward to get out, because they don't like try and give you free turns, right? So here I actually used the extra Don, because I know I'm going to get a floating Don back with the kid. I use this extra Don to just kind of force him to give me a card or kill a blocker. So he ends up choosing to give me a card, which is fine. And yeah, now it's just, I think it's no-brainer, just play, oh yeah, I was just checking if he counted out. But now I think it's just no-brainer to play the 9-cost Lin. I think it probably doesn't hurt to play the 9 cost Luffy like actively because I have the blocker up obviously, but I think just heal up, remove the offensive pressure. Like I'm building such a big board here that eventually I'm just gonna like overwhelm him. So this is me just making sure I order things correctly. So I trash it, read the card, heal up, and then bottom his ping Luffy to his life. And I used the kid ability to get back a floating Don. I don't have the Gum Gum in hand anyway, but you never know if you'll get it off life or whatever. So here you can see his hand is just 2Ks and a baby Sabo, and he is in a very bad spot here. And you can see he actually just attaches all his Don and swings into the Luffy Taro, but I just give him the kid blocker. Cool, so here I think I just start with a 7K and draw a card. He gives me the blocker, so I just tap down the other thing and just go for game. I think I just swing like 7, 7, 9, 10 or something like that. But I realize, or it's more like I just kind of want to, like I'm okay burning his hand. So you see he gives me 2-1, he's got 2 cards left. He can choose whether he wants to give me those 2, and eventually, if he doesn't give me these 2, he's not going to be able to count out of the rest. So, now I'm safe to just kind of take the board and bottom one of his adults to the bottom. And the writing is kind of on the wall here. I don't know what would actually save him here. I don't think anything really does, but I don't blame him for trying to find it here because, a lot on the line. But he sees the writing on the wall and he FFs. And that game, even though like I kind of didn't draw like that well, I think this is kind of like why putting them down so early is like so powerful, because if they don't see the stuff that they need, they kind of just like fall over like that. I think game 1 was the case where they kind of did see some of the tools that they need, and we kind of get into a bit of a like battle of attrition almost. But like P Luffy's like pretty favored in this matchup, and it's about trying to keep these big bodies on the board, and just make things like awkward for him, make him like take awkward decisions, I guess, like choosing between whether he wants like Raigo or like play out like more babies to like become like a 9K leader or whatever. And obviously not seeing the Morias really hurt him here. But that's kind of the 2 games. I think overall I think I made most of the correct decisions, like from what I can tell, like when looking back. Obviously the big misplay was not swinging correctly at the end of game 1, which actually nearly cost me the game. And also just like kind of mechanical stuff like the Lin Lin and Flampe turn. I did make the same error in the first game, but they kind of let it slide, which I was pretty lucky about, because I think if I missed the heal in the first game, I'd probably lose the game. So definitely pretty lucky there. And that's why it's important to do the correct ordering. But I think this was like a really enjoyable set. Like I'm glad that at least the first game was like really close. Because A, it's like entertaining for the stream, and B, it's just like more hype, right? That's kind of all I had to say. I don't know how long this has kind of gone for, but this was kind of just me brain dumping my thoughts, and what I like was kind of thinking during the games, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.